On my iPad? Sure. I gotta wake it up first. I'm asleep. Okay, I've got it on. I don't hear anything on there. On my iPad? Sure. Oh, first.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Day of the Astronaut, Impossible Astronaut Day, and our panel on The Legend of the Sea Devils, which aired a week ago. And let us introduce our panelists. We have Catherine Sullivan.
I'm Catherine Sullivan. I write middle grade science fiction and fantasy. I've got an essay in Chick Stick Time Wars and Children of Time. And over to
Michael Zecca.
Hi, this is Michael Zecca. I do a lot of panels for Console Room. So you've probably seen me on here. Also a
Sullivan?
Lego train geek, and you may see
I'm Catherine Sullivan. I write middle
Model
grade
Train Museum in St. Paul.
I'm Diana. Hope you guys can hear me. I do some panels for Console Room. I work with the ComCon with the Escape Room, Console Room, all around the town. So doing panels for other small cons and trivias and stuff like that.
Great. Well, it is Saturday, April 23rd. Legend of the Sea Devils aired 6 days ago. It was our Easter special here, and Jodie Whittaker's last year as the Doctor. And we thought it'd be a good time to talk about what we saw.
So doing panels for.
So, initial impressions.
I liked. I loved a lot of the videos, the costuming. I like the storyline. Anna?
I thought it was okay. It wasn't spectacular. I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, I was a little underwhelmed because the previews just really made it like it was going to be great swashbuckling, and then it just kind of went into just the same kind of thing. It was fine. I liked it, but for a special, I kind of was hoping for a little bit more, but it's just was a regular episode, and that's okay because it's Doctor Who, and we got Doctor Who.
I was going to say, on average, I think I enjoyed it. Visually, it was very stunning. The landscape vistas were beautiful. The costuming, as Kathy mentioned, was quite good. Storyline-wise, yeah, it could be better, could be worse, but isn't that true of the entire Chibnall era? The thing that really kind of stands out for me, there's some bad science, but the story as a whole, I did kind of enjoy. But I've seen a lot of criticism online of the story, and I don't think it's all warranted. I want to call back to our other Easter special, Planet of the Dead, during David Tennant's era. And I think people had high expectations, again, because it was a special, expecting to be that much more above the notch. A lot of the comments I was seeing online is, as if this has been episode 3 of a 10-episode season, no big whoop. But as a special, it should have done more. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. It's a Doctor Who episode. It's a Doctor Who episode. Planet of the Dead was notorious for having been the first episode filmed in HD. So that was something that made it special. This story, first time we've had the Sea Devils back since Warriors of the Deep. Also introduced an actor in a fairly major role who's never done film or television work before, and that's Marlo Chan Reeves, who played Yin Ki, who was the young man that was tagging along with Dan through most of the story. So, yeah.
And a lot of humor too.
Yes. Yes.
So many. I like to keep the lines bold, so I've got a lot of favorite lines. Like, oh my gosh, the humor. Yes, playing a trick on Dan.
Again.
Again, yes.
Yeah.
A man brings out an eye patch and a hook. Oh my gosh. That's why you're referring to Stephen Taylor, though, because he's wearing the gunfighter's outfit. And
true. Yeah, I was discussing before the broadcast how I feel like after having seen Dan for a while now, he's giving me kind of a Stephen Taylor vibe for the modern era, and I think that's a good thing. It's like he's got a nice relationship with both the Doctor and the companion. He interacts well with the guest stars. He's a little more comedy
mind
relief
being
than Stephen
made fun
Taylor.
of.
Yeah, he puts up with a certain amount of that. Yeah, and actually he's been very good at counseling Yaz through the relationship stuff as well. Good listener in many ways that way too.
Yeah. I was expecting him to get more into the historical part of the pirates, and I'm not quite sure why I was expecting that. Maybe because he does so much for Liverpool history. So I was expecting, it was rather odd not to have the Doctor immediately go into the entire background of Madame Ching as soon as we run into her. And I heard on the Verity podcast that there had been about 13 minutes trimmed from this episode, and maybe that entire backstory got trimmed. But I've got a whole bunch of explanations that was needed that should have been in this episode.
That could be. I did some reading up on Madame Ching this week, and she was a very interesting character and a very long-lived person who had some great success in her life, even beyond the piracy. It's sad more that didn't translate to screen, you're right. But I think just getting that name out there gets people like us interested to go research her more.
The fact that she had a fleet of ships behind her, that she had so many men, was this early on in her career because her kids were so young?
No, this is 1807 is when this episode took place, right? It's actually right around, she had been pirating with her husband for quite a while at this point. He actually passed away in November of this year. And so it may have been very early in her run as the leader. It could be that her husband's just recently passed away. That
might explain why we only had the one ship, also because of COVID too, but
maybe. But yeah, she had an entire fleet. There were, in 1805, there was a alliance formed between 7 major Chinese pirate fleets. And one of those very quickly fell out of the alliance because they surrendered to the Chinese. So there were basically 6 of them going forward. And Madame Ching's Black Flag Fleet or Red Flag Fleet? Red Flag Fleet was basically the strongest of the 6 and the leader of the 6. And her main rival was Guo Padai of the Black Flag Fleet, who is in this story the fellow that has her crew and her children held hostage. He was a rival to her in the piracy, and in fact, within a few years of this story, he surrendered to the Chinese and became a Chinese agent going after pirates like Madame Ching. So yeah, the fact that there's a rivalry there is completely historical. So that was well done.
I was going to say about the Dan thing, I just find him just the butt of all the jokes, and some of the jokes could have been cut and give us maybe more history on Madame Ching. So I'm not a big fan of the writing for Dan at all.
So I do like that he got to spin off into the side story with Yin Ki through much of the story. He was working with his own companion, and much as Stephen Taylor would break off from the rest of the group and be with, one of the guest stars or whatever in a story.
He get off to a weird start though, because he's actually 70 years old.
Yeah. and it sounded like he was about to say, no, I'm 47. And then he course corrects and says 42. So he was still lying about his age. Yeah.
And it was nice that he actually was able to get back in touch with Di at the end too.
Yes.
So there's that whole going forward.
Yep. Yeah. So we haven't forgotten about his relationships to Earth, and that's probably setting up, however, Dan's departure from the show is going to go at the Centenary. Presumably, we're going to have a big complete changeover when Russell T. Davies comes in as producer. So,
Shall we bring up the elephant in the room, the science?
yeah.
I mean, as much as I love the visual of the stars moving in her eyes, like, no, the stars don't move like that.
Given throughout the story, they were very consistent that that the Sea Devils are using a technology that relies on magnetism, and that there's a magnetic anomaly involved in things. It explains that force field around the island at the beginning. I think it explains the ability to fly Li Hun's ship. Honestly, I think it's magnetic repulsion technology, and it would explain why things like Madame Cheng's compass was failing. But the whole thing with the stars moving around, no, unless they were using magnetic fields unless the magnetic field was strong enough that it was messing with their brains, and it wasn't actually stars moving around, but their brains were misinterpreting the data. That kind of fell flat. The other thing was the whole big thing at the end, the big plot the Sea Devils had to flood out the world, which, granted, by the way, what's that going to mean for their Silurian cousins? It was all based on a magnetic pole reversal, and all these cataclysmic effects were going to happen because of a magnetic pole reversal. Magnetic pole reversals happen throughout the history of the Earth about every 100,000 years.
Yeah.
They do cause some flux and change in the Earth when it happens. I mean, birds are not going to be able to navigate for a few years because they rely on magnetic fields of the Earth, and they're all confused, and it's going to take them a while to adjust. There's some other things like, the Van Allen belts and so forth would be affected, and so your solar radiation would be a little different. But it's not just going to automatically start melting the ice caps and flooding the Earth.
That's not going to happen immediately.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a drawdown for me. Bit with the magnetic pole reversal. I was suspending my disbelief with the bad science, except for that on the stars moving around. Also, it looks like the Sea Devils now have transmat technology that they stole from Gary 7.
The smoke cloud, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it looked cool, and it kind of fit with the whole mystical legend thing of the time period. It would certainly instill fear in people the way he would appear. But when did we ever see the Silurians or Sea Devils having transmat technology before this? And if they had that, wouldn't have made the invasion of that sea base in Warriors of the Deep that much easier?
Oh yeah.
So,
but I mean, yes, they adapted the ship because they wanted to instill fear, and that probably explains some of their outfits. Okay, they want to fit in and actually frighten the sailors in that period. But yeah, the smoke cloud was like, and at one point the swords were delivering a toxic poison to the people of the village that they were killing. But when we had the sword fight, we didn't get that. So like,
well, they did mention, the doctor did shout to everybody, don't let the swords touch you or cut you, because she was afraid of the same thing happening to them. And it was described as hexatoxic poisoning, which I think is a made-up word for Doctor Who, from what I could tell. Hemotoxic is a word that exists, but hexatoxic, from what I could tell. But she mentioned something about, in that initial fight in the village, about the every capillary filling up. So that would be a bad poison, because I mean, your oxygen transport with your lungs and all, it's really kind of down to the or like not capillaries, but the little alveoli. But yeah, capillaries are important for blood flow and oxygen flow in your body, and if those fill up, you got problems. So,
Diana, any science problems you had with it?
Almost everything we've talked about. I mean, as pretty as the stars thing was, the whole, it's just, there's enough to disbelief, but then there's like, what we're saying. It's like, literally, that's can never happen. Our magnetic poles cannot control the universe's stars.
Yeah. There had to have been, I think they could have explained that better, it not being just a magnetic pole reversal, but that being part of a grander plan, then it would have made more sense.
Yeah.
If they
and again, if they were trimming the time, we lost that.
Yeah, that's the other part too.
I mean, that cool thing though of the doctor's earring tugging her off to one side, that was cool. And the whole idea of finding the force field by skipping a stone, that was just really perfect.
Magnetic hypercurve, she described it as.
Yes.
Which was kind of neat. Yeah.
And having the skipping stones being important in the beginning and at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
That. That was a great idea.
It's a nice bonding moment, the whole skipping stones thing between the three actors as well. Yeah. There was a big continuity issue I had in this episode too, which you may or may not have noticed. So this isn't really a bad science thing so much as some production assistant not paying enough attention to say, hey, we need to do this differently. I mean, most television productions have a continuity person on set to make sure that when they film things out of order, that the thing on the table is in the same place when they film the scene later. When the Doctor and Dan and Yas first land on the beach, it's fairly sunny. Not a lot. There's some clouds, but it's not too nasty of weather.
The rain in the...
Then they hear a scream from the village where we've already been seeing the battle in the village where it's pouring down rain. And they run a short distance to the village and it's pouring down rain and overcast and dark. I mean, this can happen, but not usually. There would really have to be an interesting set of meteorological phenomena.
You can have it just suddenly appear.
So it should have been a little darker on the beach, if nothing else.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. The North Shore, you could have just crossing 61 completely different. But then at the village, there's the dirt is not wet. Nobody's wet. So that kind of like, okay, but I can buy the no rain at the beach and rain at the village, but the fact that nothing was at the village indicated it otherwise.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would have liked an explanation as to, because it got rather confusing with the keystone actually being a gem and that blue stone at the base of the statue.
Yeah.
Where, what?
Yeah, when they started talking about
prying that thing loose.
I assumed it was the thing that she pried loose that then took the Chief Sea Devil from being a statue to being alive again. It even had kind of the shape you would expect from a keystone from an arch. And yet then at the end of the episode, we found out, no, the keystone's this orange gem that Yin Kee's been wearing around his neck the whole episode, and we've not heard of or seen it before.
Was there a family legend as to, oh, he's descended from a pirate? Oh, you're wearing this keystone to protect you, and the statue, is there a family legend about that statue being formed? Was there anything?
Well, I'm guessing somewhere in that 13 minutes of missing footage, we have an explanation.
So I think that, because as they said, it would glow randomly, but the Doctor also stated that it was Sea Devil technology anyway, so why did they need it? They could have just made it themselves again. It probably was they went back to try to get that keystone after he imprisoned the one guy. But the other part is that that statue was huge, holding a little human, and the Sea Devil was obviously never really that big.
Yeah, in fact, one of our questions online was about that. The fact that the statue is so much larger. I can sort of see that in that it wasn't turning the Sea Devil itself to stone so much as encasing it in something. And so the actual Sea Devil inside is smaller than the statue because it's a whole.
And the small human could have been added later.
Well, and the small human just may have been statue. It may not have been anybody that was actually frozen.
They build a statue around the imprisoned Sea Devil. Okay.
That could be. Maybe the Sea Devil's in prison and they built a statue around it. That would make sense.
Yeah. Especially with the proportions of like the human's really small. Wait. Yeah. So I would have liked to have had some hint of a family legend because
there's a hint, but not much. I mean, there's the quick conversation between Yin Qi and his father before his father goes out to face off with Madame Ching, where it's their family's responsibility to defend the statue. We don't know any more than that. A little more detail would have been helpful there.
Yeah. And again, that might have been the trimmed, but the idea that he's a descendant of a pirate would make more sense for why he's willing to go with her at the end of the episode. Respecting his ancestor.
He also has nothing left at the village.
There's that too.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was his maternal grandfather who was a descendant of Lai Bao.
Yeah.
So it came down through his mother's line, which is why he has a different name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an episode you needed to watch more than once, because I watched it the second time, and the first time through, I really got offended by the fact that Madame Sheen was kind of shoved off to the side, and we have this male pirate coming in, and he is the main focus. When I watched it the second time, it's like, okay, we've got two plot lines going. We've got Madame Sheen trying to get this treasure, and whatever his name is going to help her. And then we've got the doctor and Jing Hao Hung basically facing off against the Sea Devils.
Mm-hmm.
That worked. It worked really well then. But again, you've got to watch it more than once to catch it.
I enjoyed it much better the second time around.
Yeah. I was able to pick up more details the second time around. The third time around is when I really started paying attention to things like the science. So
you're very forgiving for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. It's Doctor Who. I'm going to just watch it for fun the first time out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually stayed away from reviews or anything about this until this was done, because I didn't want to be. I wanted my opinions to be my opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We should probably talk about the Chief Sea Devil here was played by Craig Ells, who was Carvanista all through the Flux.
Cool. So
for once, we actually have a classic Doctor Who monster that's come back who's not Nick Briggs.
Yeah.
Even though he sounded a lot like him. I have to say one thing really for me that I just adored, though, was when we did get that big climactic battle with the Sea Devils on the pirate ship with the swords and all that. When the random Sea Devils would be killed, they would let out the classic Sea Devil scream.
When the Doctor's normally so good at swordplay, and she's not. And it makes sense, so. But she's very, very flexible and sliding down that whole portion of the ship and dodging. It's like, yeah, she's got reflexes still.
Well, we've seen with different Doctors before that some skill sets skip a regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously Pertwee was good with a sword and Peter Davison was good with a sword. It doesn't mean
Capaldi was good with a spoon.
Yeah. Capaldi was good with a spoon. So Matt Smith probably would have been horrible with a sword. He would have been flailing it all over the place,
Stabbing himself.
Yeah.
But the fact that Dan was doing really good. Oh, sorry, Diane.
Oh, I said Tennant and Smith were very good at running.
Mm-hmm.
And Yaz was so good too. I don't think she fighting with the sword, or she was doing with a
She's probably got some experience with a nightstick.
Yeah, because it didn't look like a regular sword. It was looking. I have to watch it another time.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, she's probably got some experience with a nightstick and defending herself against, knives and things. So one place where her police training might have actually come into the series, because let's face it, a lot of times I'm not getting a police vibe off of her. So
her getting skills are not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking American versus British. So
she also caves quickly.
I do love when Jodie first faces off with that Chief Sea Devil. That first of all, the beauty of that shot where they go from fuzzed out to focused on his face as he steps forward. That was just some beautiful cinematography there. But then she says, Sea Devil. He says, land parasite.
Yes. Oh, the insults.
Yes.
Well,
we can get into that. Pardon?
At that time, they probably weren't going by sea. Wasn't it? It's like aquatic Solarians or something. They kind of considered themselves more, so it's probably like more of a jab.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, because it wasn't until the 70s we got that.
She didn't expect to see them, that's for sure.
Yeah, because here's a sign of Sea Devils having been awakened well before the Pertwee stories, and yet there's no evidence of it in the Pertwee stories. So obviously she took care of that problem. Right?
And I love the view we got of the monster. What was it? Did they actually name? Because I don't expect it to be called the Merca, but
they call it a Wa Shen, And I looked up and there's no historical basis for that. I thought maybe there was something from Chinese mythology, but nothing that I could find. I kind of think of it as a kaiju merca myself.
Okay. Why not? Oh, but it was so well, because I mean, so much of it was hidden, and then you get the jaws opening.
Mm-hmm.
And Jodie complaining that if it was going to park it should have parked the right side up.
Mm-hmm. It's some beautiful underwater shots of the TARDIS in this one as well.
That was gorgeous.
They opened the door.
Mm-hmm. And the explanation that only was there the oxygen bubble, but an extra aquatic shield just to be sure. And so she was actually taking safety precautions. This is good.
And that classic line now, no ship, Sherlock.
Yes, I was going to say, amongst our various funny lines in this one, that was a classic. There was also that bit where Yaz says, "You're like a kid sometimes." She's like, "Thanks," and then pauses a second. Only sometimes?
Yes. So perfect. And that whole line of "that's the trouble with history, never the same as the books." Same with Stephen King movies. Okay.
Yeah. Drop the Stephen King reference. Yeah.
So many good lines.
Mm-hmm.
Evan King, I don't understand half the words you say. Dan, you're not the first to say that.
And we had our Matt Smith call back when they leapt from the Flying Sea Devil ship to Madame Shing's ship.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor screamed Geronimo.
They're swinging a lot back and forth a lot on those ships, though, and also going up and down a lot. It's like,
yeah.
That was a very continuity.
Do we want to talk about the leap that Sea Devil did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
classic Chinese move in Chinese drama.
A little weird, but it was fun.
Sorry, I've been watching some Chinese drama lately. It's like, yeah, that's typical.
Okay. Yeah, so for all the people that were been critical of it online, they didn't catch that. That's because I didn't either. That does make sense. It does fit.
Yeah. That's a normal thing.
Man. You know, after and they did go for a director for this one. I don't know if you noticed, who is Chinese as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Segun's music for this one was incredible.
Gosh, yes, they better put that out on the CD.
But it's making me think now that we haven't done our Bollywood Doctor Who episode yet.
Oh gosh.
I mean, we had one set at the Division of India, but or the Partition of India, but we haven't really done a full proper Bollywood spectacular on Doctor Who yet. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Big Finish, if you're listening.
Yes, let it go over there.
Yeah, that would be cool, because you could get the musical numbers in, and they've done it with the pirate one with
Mm-hmm.
Colin
and Evelyn and
yes,
from the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to that Keystone for a moment. So that Keystone seemed to be very powerful. I know they talked about it being Sea Devil tech, but it had the power to do all this and that and everything. And I know a lot of people that I looked at online were saying they really got an Infinity Stone vibe off of it.
Well, I think after that movie, everybody's going to have Infinity Stone vibes.
Yeah.
And I guess they kept going after it is probably one scientist invented this and died, and nobody else could reinvent that technology.
Maybe, because I was going to say that it seemed too powerful otherwise. That would make more sense to me, I guess.
Yeah. But it was handy that it started glowing right at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at random, and glows orange at random times.
Yeah. And then it starts glowing orange right then.
And so easily taken from that poor kid.
Wow,
if he just stayed behind in the village.
Yeah. Our kid never faced off with not an alien, because they're not, but
yeah.
I do think the director did a wonderful job of putting this one together. Other than, like I said, the continuity error that the production assistant should have caught. Yeah. It looked beautiful. It flowed fairly nicely. This director has primarily done short films prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
There's a great
First
interview with
time.
her at the, I'd say, in this issue,
Okay.
because you've got the costumer, you've got the writer, you've got the director. So a lot of good articles in that particular issue.
Natasha brings up a question. How often in the series with the current showrunners, do we have one of the guest stars sacrifice themselves for the good guys to win?
We've had it several times in Jodie's run, because we had the guy who's basically activating the particle, the death particle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've had
Kind of
this
had a
one.
lot.
It does seem to happen a lot in Chibnall's era. Another criticism I've had people say of the Chibnall era that I think is somewhat true again in this story is that a lot of times things are happening to the Doctor and the companions and not because of the Doctor and the companions. Like they could be more, the Doctor in particular could be a little bit more involved in driving the plot. That being said, I think she did kind of take the reins to go back to find out what was going on with the treasure of the Flor del Mar and Ji-hun and everything.
So now there's something. She literally left Dan in 1807 when we it's already established that TARDIS is never predictable enough.
But
I just felt that a little bit.
Yeah, because it'd been pulled off course to that particular spot. So maybe she was counting on being pulled back to the exact spot again. But how did she know it was going to work to get away from him?
Exactly.
True.
Let alone just leaving them. Leaving on the TARDIS. Yes, leaving them to do their own thing somewhere else, wherever they are. It's one thing. It's literally leaving on the TARDIS.
Yeah, and there's also a criticism that comes up a lot that relying too much on the sonic screwdriver again to answer questions about things. At the beginning, when her earring gets tugged toward the beach, she immediately pulls out the sonic and listens to it and has an answer for what's going on. And the Doctor probably could have figured that out fairly quickly without the sonic, and it would have explained things a little better to the audience.
Yeah, but if the Doctor and Yaz hadn't been there, Ji-hun would not have been freed.
Yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of stuff there that he needed to be there for.
Yeah.
I have to go back and watch again. Did they actually explain to Madam Ching to bring the treasure into the TARDIS because they had swung across from the ship? They didn't know what the TARDIS was. She and what's his name would not have known that there was an easy way of getting the treasure back. They probably were expecting to swing it back to the other ship, but by bringing it into the TARDIS. So again, that's another line that was probably cut somewhere.
Yeah. That is one unfortunate thing that happens when even films are edited sometimes. Sometimes you have to lose scenes for timing, but you end up losing a piece of exposition which is necessary to explain the plot.
This is going to be one of those I'm going to hoping the uncut version is on the DVD set because I want to know those.
And this is one of those things that maybe in the Centenary Special we won't have as many cuts because it is feature length.
Yeah. I'd also like to know, how did the pirates who had to jump overboard survive in the middle of the sea with that stupid monster going around?
That is a very good question, because the impression you got there with Ji-hun when he was
trying to kill him,
facing off the chief sea devil, is that when that monster roars up, it's like, you just screwed over my entire crew and they're all dead. And then he's very surprised when he finds that Les Bao survived.
Yeah.
So at least one of them got away with the stone. But
and that's
the impression is most of them did not.
Yeah. And his intention was to save his crew. And he was happy. But then there's this big sea monster, really? And they got away. Where were they? Because even Yaz and the Doctor thought he was
killing them.
Executing them.
Yeah. I don't know. Did they have lifeboats they were lowering over the side beforehand? I don't know.
There may have been, but even then, that might have been more of a target for the monsters. So,
oh, but wasn't it a beautiful depiction of a sea monster? Oh my gosh!
Oh, yeah.
The jaws within the jaws within the jaws. all the way down.
I don't know if it needed the 10 eyes or whatever, but yeah.
Obviously alien. So
Alien, but
where would they have come from? Yeah.
But the Sea Devils and the Silurians aren't alien; they're terrestrial life forms. So, what was the evolutionary adaptation to produce that many eyes? Granted, why did the Silurians have 3? Which seems to have kind of gotten glossed over in the new series anyway. But
But it was so cool when somebody came up from the ocean floor and grabbed the TARDIS. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. Although, what was the deal with the ocean? It being under the ocean floor, had it been sleeping all this time and was just awoken by them being there?
Was it released because the Sea Devils could detect the TARDIS there? Yeah, why did the TARDIS stay suspended in that spot? Was there actually a force field and then opened up at that point?
My first viewing, I thought their HQ was in the belly of it. The first time,
Okay.
But yeah, I was like, well, and that could be like they created that and that's how they were hiding, let alone also under the ground. But then watching it the second time, and that was today, that really doesn't really work.
Well, it could have been a cover, but oh my gosh, all the life that had already been up there.
Yeah.
Because that was such a beautiful scene.
I liked it when the ground was gone, the ocean floor was gone, and they're looking down like it's gone.
Yeah, and Dad's wondering, why isn't the TARDIS falling? Well, because it's hovering there.
The bubble.
Well, it's trapped in a particular, it's landed itself in a particular point in space-time. It's not worried about gravity.
I'll accept that.
Hovering there.
And I thought it was the oxygen bubble and the aquatic force field part.
That could be helping too, yeah. And we've seen the TARDIS hover in air, though. It could hover in a certain depth of the water as well. I really liked Crystal Yu's performance as Madame Ching. I know they both were saying we would like to see more of her, but I think she really did a lot with the role in the short time she was on screen. It made her very three-dimensional. We could have, stereotypical pirate stuff, or we could have horrible stereotypes about women pirates, but no, I think she pulled off a very three-dimensional performance.
And as much as I dislike the fact that she was basically stereotyped in the maternal pirate, and she's got these young kids, the way she interacted with, I'm going to mispronounce his name.
Yankee.
Thank you. Was just special, and the fact that he responded to her in that way by the end of the episode, it was fun to watch.
And I don't think she hated the hug. I think she just basically don't do it in front of the troops.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's saying, don't ever do that again. Yes.
When you talk about the maternal thing, I think she had a connection with her crew that maybe had a maternal element to it. She was out to protect them because they were her crew, but I think the maternal aspect maybe made it a little bit stronger for her.
But on the other hand, you also had Jing Hao's response to protecting his crew. So,
Ji-hun? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is saying a captain is going to be looking out for their crew, both for their own self-interest and everything else.
Yeah, but it was personal too, that she had the ear. I mean, that was, I can't see Blackbeard being like, he gave me an ear, one of my crew members. I'm just going to go kill you.
Yeah.
Or, he's not going to go after her that she did.
If it was Steve Bonnet's ear, he might have freaked out.
Well.
But that whole exposure of the ear, and basically going, is that her ear? And Dan's point, she's got both ears. Again, the humor aspect. They did so well with this. Yeah.
Dan does like to point out the obvious when people are missing it. Which I think Stephen Taylor did a certain amount of too back in the day, so it fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of sad that Dan's run is so short and Yaz's has been so long. I'd like to see more of Dan. It'd be almost fun to have him carry into another season with the next Doctor and see how it played out.
Well, I hope we actually see the closure between him and Di by the end.
Yeah, hopefully that is coming up in the Centenary. I think that's what that scene at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils was intended to suggest, is that we're setting that up for his swan song.
And the fact that, okay, next big thing in the elephant in the room is like that whole relationship with the doctor undersea saying, "Not a bad date, am I?" And then leading into the, yes, okay, fine, pretend we had the romance, but the fact that she's actually going forward and saying, "You're one of the greatest people I've ever known," including my wife. We had that reference in there too. But the
which
fact
Yaz is a little shocked by.
Yeah. But that whole thing of I'm getting the quote here. I can't fix myself to anything or anywhere or anyone. I've never been able to. It's what my life is. But if I do fix myself to someone, sooner or later, it will hurt. It's like, okay, we've got a very long-lived person. And it's finally acknowledging the fact that to her, a lot of humans are like mayflies, very short-lived. And it is going to hurt. Of course, she has that then response with her grandmother's thing of courage is knowing something will hurt and doing it anyway. And then the response, can we just live in the present with what we have while we still have it? Like, oh, wow. That was well written.
It was very well written. I just don't think Yaz, I think they kind of forgot that when they first met the doctor, she had just literally turned into a woman. And I don't think Yaz totally understands the whole Time Lord thing. I mean, the only reason Rose picked up on it was because she saw it.
Well, and the doctor did make a mention in response to something in the story that I was a different man back then. She still says things like that, and Yaz and such are still kind of oblivious to it sometimes. I mean, Graham responded like that, a couple seasons ago. I mean, she'd made this mention before about having been a white-haired Scotsman, and it doesn't really drive home until he's face to face with Captain Jack Harkness, who's talking about these previous incarnations. Like, oh, she was telling the truth.
And I mean, Yaz has had a good conversation with Captain Jack.
Yeah. That being said, I hate to say it for those that love Yaz, but I don't think Yaz is the best person the doctor has ever traveled with. And I don't see what the doctor sees in her. But I understand that it's been an interesting relationship to navigate with these two. Yaz was smitten with her earlier, and she's come around a little bit in the last year as well, realizing the doctor has some faults and issues that she's dealing with. But
Yaz having the conversation with Dan. Did you tell her?
Yeah.
I mean, for all of Chris Chibnall's weaknesses in writing, I think that he's doing character moments all right. Maybe not quite as high a threshold as, say, Russell T. Davis gets credit for, but this is probably something he's got more of a strength for than Stephen Moffat did. Plot-wise, Stephen Moffat had more strength.
Stephen Moffat tended to hit everybody over the head with his plots.
Yeah, but at least he tended to flesh them out. Natasha points out that they're just as awkward in real life, which makes them more believable.
Which is a good point.
Yeah, that's something too. This has been come up time and again that this doctor is very socially awkward.
Yeah.
And she realizes that she is, and she doesn't know how to relate to other people as well as she feels like she should. And I think Peter Capaldi's doctor was like that as well. I think there's some continuity there. In fact, there may even be an implication back in the regeneration even that's part of the reason why she switched genders is an attempt to try to become better around people again. Capaldi definitely recognized he had a failing when it came to relating to humans. And
because he needed the cue cards.
Yeah, when Capaldi switches to Jodie and she first looks in the monitor and sees her reflection, she's like, brilliant. Maybe this is the way to go. But along the way, we've had several moments in this in the Chibnall era where she has pointed out her social awkwardness.
Yeah.
Sometimes the point of beating you over the head with it. And I'm thinking of that conversation she had with Graham.
Yeah. I should be saying something at this point, but
but I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to wander over here and look at the instruments and ignore things for a minute and hope it all goes away. Yeah.
And the fact that the Sea Devil pointed out, you talk to secure yourself, time to think, which this doctor does, a lot of babbling, and all of a sudden she'll come back with, oh, and here's this solution.
Although I think that's consistent across all the doctors. I think it's just that this is one of those enemies that recognizes this is what you're doing to me, and I'm not going to let it play.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times did John Pertwee or Peter Davison or any of them just talk over things to confuse you?
Tennant.
Tom Baker,
like
Matt Smith.
Right. We know, but it's so normal for us, but then to hear it called out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Not every enemy is recognizing it or calling them out. Some of them stop her and do. And the Chief Sea Devil was smart enough to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Oh, other priceless lines. Sea Devil, where did you, no, it was Jing Han. Where do you learn to deal with your enemies like that? You should meet my mom.
Yes. Yeah. And we've seen
here he's pointing out to the pirate in the room and saying, oh, don't mess with us. He'll take care of it. And then he swipes him with the sword.
Yeah, that was pretty heroic on Dan's part there, actually, and a little bit sneaky.
Okay, Natasha's talking about the costuming. The costuming. The interview with the costumer in Doctor Who magazine was just wonderful because they're pointing out all the little aspects. Did you notice the barnacles on the Sea Devil's coat? Did you notice the webbing at some point? It was just like, oh yeah, and wonder how accurate the 15. Harvard was again. They are pointing out in the article that they had particular layers, and they were going back to the particular costuming. The costume team, and that's why they had two different eras for the costuming. That it's a really good article, and they're talking about the artwork and the costumes.
I found it like the doctor's Yaz's was great, the makeup. And of course, the reason I don't care for the whole thing with Dan was because it's like, yeah, he was just made as a butt of a joke. And I think that they could have rolled the story along and we could have gotten that more stuff that we wanted instead of just like, oh, I got hooked. I guess, I don't know.
I got the
I'm not like, I guess I'm not a fan of companions too much of the butt of the joke in an episode.
But he was laughing at himself too, so it wasn't.
Oh yeah, I know, but could have had other stuff.
Gotta say on the costuming, I think this has been a strength of Doctor Who all the way back to 63. I think this is one of the things that makes this show appeal, I think, to the American fan, is that even as wobbly as the sets were sometimes, the historical costumes have been rich and diverse, and quite a lot of them, and even the makeup jobs they've tried to do on the aliens, there's been a lot of variety, a lot of attempts to do something interesting, unlike, say, Star Trek, where you just paste a different piece of latex above the nose and call it an alien. Sea devils are nicely, even though they are a terrestrial species, they're nicely alien. They look very different. They're humanoid, but they're very different. And a lot of efforts put into this. And I think, part of the thing with the costuming is just simply that the Doctor Who has had access to the BBC props department for all the years. They've had access to wardrobes for things left over from all these historical dramas and things that the BBC does. And they're able to utilize those in very interesting ways. Sometimes in doing a historical story like this, sometimes in doing a futuristic story, but using some different cultures' wardrobes as the costume for this planet or that planet. There were obviously, Japanese feudal influences all over Brian Blessed's character in Trial of a Time Lord. They were trying to make him up as a samurai from another planet, essentially. I think this is something that appeals to us because our wardrobe choices here tend to be much more limited.
Yeah.
So we don't do as much period drama stuff.
The the different layers. It's just
A lot of attention put in by the wardrobe departments and prop departments and things. Even when you can see, sets aren't fully painted like in the war games and stuff, it holds up because the costumes and the acting and stuff holds up. So,
I mean, just this whole season with the Flux episodes, you had those rich details on Swarm and Azure. And then you get to this one and the different layers of Madame Ching's outfit and the jewelry and
even the choice of clothing that the Doctor and Yaz wear in this are very interesting. So,
do we want to spend any time on the trailer for?
Yeah, I think we're far enough along in this discussion now. If anyone wants to bail out, now's the time to do it. We were going to talk about the Centenary Special. So it's the 100th year of the BBC this year, and a lot of BBC shows are doing specials in the fall to honor 100 years of BBC, first as a radio broadcaster and later as a television broadcaster. So we have what's being known as the Centenary Special coming up November-ish for Doctor Who. It's described as feature length. I think we're probably talking Day of the Doctor, 90 minutes-ish. And we got the first trailer for it. Now, I think one thing that was wonderful with the Centenary Special, we've had hints of what's going to be in Legends of the Sea Devil for a while. We had a trailer in January, but there have been photos from the sets, and we'd heard pirates and Sea Devils, and okay. We hadn't heard a lot about the Centenary Special. There were a few rumors here and there, but not a lot. I had heard rumors. I'd heard that the Master would be back. I'd heard rumors that Ace would be back. I just jaw dropped when Janet Fielding popped up.
Oh gosh.
I was not expecting that at all. And I was overjoyed.
Yeah. And actually have them call how many years ago it was, 40 years and 30 years.
Yes. We definitely have Tegan, Ace, the Master, the Daleks, the Cybermen. Graham has been mentioned. Will be back as well, though it sounded like Tosin Cole was unavailable or uninterested, so Ryan will not be back. Kate Stewart was in the trailer as well, so we know we've got her back as well. There's rumors maybe other companions are in there. People are reading between the lines on things that Nicola Bryant and Katie Manning have tweeted. We really don't know much about what the story is, but we have some interesting people involved, and we know the Doctor will be generating. And then we'll be handing over to a new producer and a new actor and so on. So.
Which is a good summary. And I was wondering about Katie Manning because, hey, of all the other companions, she's already appeared in Sarah Jane Adventures. So,
yeah.
Someone wondered if they might not be trying to pull a companion from each decade into this somehow. Someone representing each decade into this somehow. So Janet would be kind of representing the 80s and Ace maybe the late 80s into the 90s.
And will we get Caroline Ford or will we get
William Russell?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Peter Purvis.
Oh my
Maybe
God.
we can get Stephen Taylor and Dan interacting. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I don't know. It's interesting.
So instead of a Doctor heavy episode, we'll get a companion heavy episode.
Quite possibly. This might be our big companion anniversary, multi-companion story.
Which would be very cool. I want to see their reactions to Jodie.
I just hope that Jodie gets a good amount of screen time and is leading the plot and not having it led by someone else like the Master again.
Yeah.
Let's face it, I think that whole plot line at the end of season 12 was really led by the Master, not by the Doctor. And it kind of, from the trailer, looks like that's happening again, and I hope not.
Yeah. If this is going to be her swan song, I want to have the focus on her.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. But I guess if nothing else, I was just overjoyed that, oh my God, we're getting Tegan back. We're getting Janet back. And what's that going to be like after all the years?
Especially when we saw them fighting together, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great.
Yeah, Tegan and Ace side by side.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, I have to say I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the trailer.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no. It's okay. I'm totally okay with that. I mean, I've already read enough and knew, like, I knew Janet Fielding and all that. Like, that was all coming back. It's not.
But I absolutely had no idea she was coming back until I saw the trailer at the end of the episode.
Oh.
It was just, my jaw just dropped.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned online in response to people were talking to Janet, I think I may have uttered some obscenities. I was just like, my God. Like good ones, but yeah. Just I'm excited about this based on that. So many of the people have been critical Legend of the Sea Devils and said, well, is this proof that, blah, blah, that, everybody's more excited about the trailer than they were about the episode. But the trailer had some nice surprises in it we weren't expecting.
Yeah,
Sorry. And there's nothing wrong with being excited about the next story. I was excited for Legend of the Sea Devils from the moment I saw the trailer back in January. So,
yes.
There's nothing wrong with being excited for the next episode, especially when a trailer is done well. So I think they've played the cards well close to the chest with this one for quite a while, and I still think they haven't revealed that much.
Yeah.
Everyone's
I'm
been expecting for a month, like imminently an announcement of the next Doctor actor, but they might well hold that one until the episode airs,
which
or
would
even
be great.
beyond.
I would love that.
Yeah, or even beyond, because maybe they'll leave it enough in question at the end of the centenary we won't even know yet. And I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that, but I'm at the same time, I just want the stupid headlines to go away. It's not going to be Idris. It's not going to be Tennant. It's not going to be so-and-so. It's just, let it.
Yeah.
Stop with the rumors.
The best reveal we ever had for the Doctor, in my opinion, was the Jodie reveal. Because the fact that it was going to be a female Doctor, that was absolutely fantastic. And if they do something similar for the next Doctor.
Well, and the way they shot that one too, you weren't even sure the Doctor was female until she pulled the hood back.
Yeah.
Which was nice. It was really left vague.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But I also don't feel like it needs to be the big grand spectacle that they made it when Capaldi and Jodie were either. I know that there's this feeling in the press. I know that Mr. Tribley did a review the other day on YouTube of all the announcements of all the Doctors.
Oh, wow.
All the way back to Hartnell's casting. And many of them were very subdued, back page, 1-line, 2-line newspaper articles.
Okay.
And, it's only in the 80s and beyond we start getting media spectacles going on because people paid more attention to television news at that point.
Yeah, John Nathan Turner too, so.
Exactly. So, although he was finding out even like Paul McGann's announcement was a little bit subdued.
Yeah. That was also because you had the American production companies involved as well. So
yeah,
our production company.
Even mentioned Peter Cushing's announcement was just like a little short blurb in Variety.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Anything more we want to say about this?
I liked the episode. I liked the trailer. Looking forward.
Diana?
Looking forward. Didn't hate it. It wasn't the best, but it was still Doctor Who, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Wasn't the best episode I've ever seen. It wasn't the worst. It was enjoyable. I'm looking forward to the centenary. I'm looking forward to more Doctor Who. I'm looking forward to some changes. Change is a constant with this show. Again, it's April 23rd now, but coming in January, we do have another console room convention. So we can talk even more about Doctor Who then and see some new exciting guests, and we'll be able to talk about the Centenary Special by then.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for today. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Hi, everyone.